Good morning, and thank you for joining us at the First Unitarian Church of Alton on this 14th day of June, 2020. Our minister, Reverend Amy Brooks, is in the pulpit on alternate Sundays. For the services when she's not here, we offer guest speakers or are lay-led by members of our congregation or those of us on the Worship Associates Committee. I am Peg Flack, and the speaker today is Dennis Fisher. We welcome everyone to this home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope. We are Unitarian Universalists. And now we begin our worship with a prelude by our accompanist, Joy Heft. We at First UU follow the Unitarian tradition of lighting a chalice to begin our worship service, and we shall do this virtually at this time.
Did I do it?
Is it there? Well, I hope it is. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage.
Hi, I'm Dennis Fisher. Thanks so much for inviting me to speak this morning. My hero, Charles Darwin, noted that it's not the strongest that survive, but rather the most adaptable. We're discovering the wisdom in Darwin's thesis on adaptation. Rarely in human history have people been asked to adapt so abruptly and so dramatically. Another hero, Carl Jung, said that the difference between a good life and a bad life is how well you walk through the fire. I like to think Jung is talking about adaptation as well. We've been given a lot of trials by fire of late. Let's consider how we're adapting to that. Blaise Pascal was a French mathematician and philosopher who lived in the 1600s. He's considered by many to have invented the first functional computer, a mechanical device that calculated numbers. Later in life, he lost his beloved father and soon had a brush with death himself, and he became fascinated with cosmology. He obsessed over how we can know the why, what, and how of life. I've made my living with computers. I recently lost a beloved parent, and I had a brush with death. Now I'm fascinated with cosmology. I'm compelled to wonder why, what, and how. Patterns are revealed. Pascal described humanity as a finite being trapped within an incomprehensible infinity. briefly thrust into being from non-being with no explanation of why, what, or how. In Pascal's view, human finitude constrains our ability to reliably achieve truth. Pascal, free of the delusion that we can apply the certainties of computational reason to matters of the spirit, came up with an idea we call Pascal's wager. Given that reason alone cannot determine whether a greater consciousness that gives meaning to life exists, Pascal concluded that this question functions like a coin toss. However, even if we do not know the outcome of this coin toss, we must base our actions on some expectation about the outcome. We must decide whether to live as though a greater consciousness exists or whether to live as though a greater consciousness does not exist, even though we may be mistaken in either case. If you bet on the existence of a universal consciousness and you are wrong, you lose nothing. If you bet against a universal consciousness and you are wrong, you lose everything. Blaise Pascal said that the heart has its reasons, which reason knows nothing of. We know the truth not only by reason, but by the heart.
We are more than the sum of our parts. We carry with us the joys and sorrows of our days. We gather to experience the warmth of community. You may choose to sit in reflection right where you are, or you may choose to bring yourself into awareness of the important things in your life through thought or meditation. You may choose to write a few words or draw an image to reflect upon your joys and concerns. I invite you now to participate in our ritual of joys and sorrows as Joy shares the hymn, I've Got a Peace Like a River.
Some years ago, I went on a rafting and kayaking trip on the Chattooga and Nantahala rivers in North Carolina and Georgia. We drafted down the Chattooga, the river the movie Deliverance was filmed on. It turned out it was just as dangerous as the movie made it seem. Water levels were high and we overturned in a massive rapid. It was truly a life-threatening situation. I got stuck under the raft going downstream over rock falls. I went through the rapid underneath the raft, unable to see where I was going or the danger ahead. It was mortally terrifying. I set a personal pulse record by the time I got out from under that raft, and the river was saltier after my unscheduled swim. Later that day, I asked the guide what the locals thought of the movie Deliverance. He gave me a sideways look that seemed to suggest he didn't think I was too bright. He asked me in return what I would think about people who portrayed me as an inbred, illiterate, murderous sodomite. I guessed that the locals weren't that crazy about the movie. The guide confirmed my hunch. The leader of the trip decided the next day to take us to a lake nearby, a place with still water and less of a chance to kill his clients. We were to practice kayaking, a sport I had never experienced. I found the posture for kayaking to be incredibly uncomfortable and had trouble keeping my balance. Soon I found myself upside down in the water, stuck in the kayak, trying to remember the directions for getting out of the cockpit. I had a doctor tell me once that I had the least flexible hamstrings he'd ever seen on someone not settling into rigor mortis. As I tried to extract myself from the kayak by somersaulting forward out of the cockpit, as per the guide's directions, my inflexible hamstrings caused my foot to get stuck under the seat. I could twist my body enough to get my hands out of the water, but not my head. It looked like it was going to end badly, and my novice kayaking peers were going to get to see if my hamstrings actually were tighter after rigor mortis set in. At the last moment, I broke free, clawed to the surface, took the most welcome gasp of breath I'd ever experienced, and spontaneously thanked the Abrahamic God I had long since stopped believing in for allowing me to live. As I held onto the overturned kayak with a death grip, gasping life-saving oxygen, thanking the God I would have mocked as a fantasy moments earlier, 6 inches from my nose, a giant snake slithered past me in the water. Soon the lake, like the river, was a bit saltier. Now the appearance of the snake, moments after I thanked my Creator, was what we call irony. I decided I needed a break from paddle sports. As it happened, nearby was a spur of the famous Appalachian Trail. I decided that a short walk on terra firma was just the tonic I needed to calm my jittery nerves. And I'd always dreamed of hiking the Appalachian Trail, and here was an opportunity for a short day hike. I could have the glory of hiking the trail without the commitment or the sacrifice. It seemed so American to me. And it would keep me out of the water the cosmos seemed determined to be teaching me lessons on mortality with. The trail crossed what I recall was the Nantahala River, which exited the lake I had so recently communed with a snake on. There was a walking bridge across the river, a narrow span that swayed disconcertingly as you walked across. I walked to the middle of the bridge, stopped to look upstream at the rapids coming down the river. It was a sublime and beautiful view, and I considered myself blessed to see such a sight. I started to walk to the opposite side of the bridge and continue my short journey on the Appalachian Trail. After 2 brief steps, I heard a buzzing sound, and there in front of me at eye level was the biggest, scariest hornet I've ever seen. It was furry. Its stinger was visible. I stopped in my tracks. I wanted nothing to do with this gigantic stinging monster. I squatted down to duck under it. It lowered its flight, staying at eye level. I stood back up and it raised with me, again, staying right at eye level. I lowered again, it lowered. I stood up, it went up, always at eye level. It was as if it had a conscious understanding that by staying at eye level, it would discombobulate me. It was correct. I decided I'd concede defeat, retreat back to the riverbank, back to where I'd started. I turned around and I noticed the buzzing was in stereo. I now had a hornet on the other side of me, just like the other at eye level. Tried to squat under it, it went down, stood up, it went back up. So now I was trapped between 2 hornets on a narrow swinging bridge over a river. Couldn't go either direction. If I tried to get past it, I'd risk being stung. It was 95 degrees out, high humidity, midday in the sun. I was lightheaded in the heat, and I was incredulous at what was happening. Trapped on a rickety swaying bridge above river rapids, hornets trapping me in place. There was nothing to do. I tried every so often to go one direction or another, squatting to squeeze under them, and every time they stayed right at eye level. It was as if they were consciously toying with me. I baked in the sun, pondering the odds of living if I jumped in the river. I'm not a good swimmer. I prayed once again to the God I was dismissive of when things were going well. I was afraid to see if I'd survive a leap into the river. Now, the raft adventure had been scary, but somewhat understandable. The water was high, we turned over in rapids. The kayak adventure had also been somewhat understandable. I turned over in a kayak. I was a novice. I didn't have the experience and skill to safely exit the kayak, and even the snake was understandable. I was in a lake. Water snakes live in lakes. But this hornet thing, I couldn't get a handle on it. Why would they seek me out over a river on a bridge, hover on either side of me, adjust the height of their flight every time I tried to get past them? It was as if they knew my fear and were exploiting it. It was as if they'd agreed to torture me. So I was anxious and afraid and wondering what forces were at work. But there was a terrible realization here. Something dangerous and unsettling was happening, and I had absolutely no solution to that problem. It's the uncertainty that drains you. And I asked myself, what is the cosmos telling me here? On the last day of the trip, there was a terrible thunderstorm, but the sky soon cleared. The air was fresh and cool and beautiful, with towering clouds above, framed by open blue skies. And suddenly, right in our field of vision, the most perfectly formed rainbow I'd ever seen appeared, boom, like that, and immediately revealed itself as a double rainbow that stretched all the way to the ground on both of its legs. I'd never seen a perfectly formed double rainbow in my life. One of my companions and I laughed and marveled at this beautiful sight. We sat in awe for probably 15 minutes, taking in this remarkably lovely and majestic rainbow. It seemed like an omen, a sign from the cosmos. And I wondered then, what's the cosmos telling me with this? The human brain is designed to try to make sense of things. We know that the brain's user interface, consciousness, actively constructs reality, and usually constructs a reality based on preconceived notions molded by past experience. When we ponder what the cosmos is telling us regarding things like hornets trapping us on a bridge or double rainbows appearing out of nowhere, we're inclined to find an explanation rooted in those preconceived notions. There's a well-known phenomenon called confirmation bias. When we hear information, whether from a conversation or the media or elsewhere, before the information is completely exchanged, our biases and experiences shape our perception of it. Sometimes a few moments into being exposed to new information, our take on the information is hardened because of what is already floating around in our head. Since we know this, and this is a powerful bit of knowledge, how might we use that knowledge? Perhaps we should consider trying to consciously create internal biases that embrace positive, life-affirming qualities. We're perpetually creating biases in our subconscious. It's how we're wired. Why not do it consciously? We need to rig our biases to ensure that we engage in the world in a way that is empathetic, a way that helps us to be our better rather than our lesser selves. Here's the design of the universe in a paragraph. It'll be a slightly suspect explanation, but then aren't most explanations. Everything in the universe came from the Big Bang. We're made out of stars. Inorganic matter from that Big Bang coalesced somehow into organic matter, the building blocks of life. There was a magic moment in the history of the universe. This was it. Organic matter somehow adapted and evolved, and life appeared, another magic milestone. Eventually, life with consciousness evolved and became favored by natural selection, and then further developments favored creatures with empathy, adaptive behavior that improves success in reproducing. Because of the nature of our central nervous system, the universe allows humans to view the universe and draw conclusions. We aren't just aware, we are aware that we are aware. That cognition, the ability to draw conclusions, leads us to preconceived notions, notions that we subconsciously create, notions that will be the engines of confirmation biases that drive us. It will allow us to make many suspect conclusions, just like this paragraph. We are creators, and the design of the universe allows us to adapt and make our perception and attitudes regarding life whatever we want them to be. We can choose to view our experiences as negative or positive. It's up to us. We can choose to be in heaven, or we can choose to be in hell. This ability to create your own reality is so powerful. I know this will seem hard to believe, but imagine a billionaire who is the most powerful man in the world, who spends all day, every day, talking about how bad he has it and how much of a victim he is. Powerful stuff. It's worth considering that such a structure can allow the individual to be delusional. Heaven knows I've made mistakes in interpreting and reacting to experiences in my life, but there's a built-in fail-safe mechanism. Ethics and morality are adapted behaviors that improve chances for replication. Thus, it is to our advantage to be honest with ourselves and others when forming the cognitive world we live in. Being honest with ourselves can make us more likely to succeed as humans and genetic replicators. Choose a beautiful world, a world of empathy, a world of love and companionship to guide your confirmation biases, and that is the world that you will live in. It is up to you. The hornets eventually tired of me and moved on before I could turn them into evidence of a dangerous and indifferent world. Instead, I turned them into a story to provide people with a smile and make them think a little. The snake ignored me. I chose to apply a funny lesson of irony to that snake instead of make him a symbol for the fall in the garden. The double rainbow I assigned as evidence that the cosmos is beautiful and that the cosmos approved of me and my companions that day. I could have made each into a lesson regarding a sinister world, a world of indifference, a world of danger, a world where I'm a victim. That would have been a common approach that people take. Instead, I made them into funny anecdotes on the puzzling nature of life. The Buddha taught that suffering is an inescapable part of life, but he also taught that how we react to suffering is where the magic of life occurs. We can't choose what happens to us, but we can choose how we react to what happens to us. It's our reaction to life's travails that determines the nature of our journey in life. Our reaction to inescapable suffering determines what kind of world we inhabit. Let's make it a beautiful journey that always acknowledges our blessings. It's our choice, a hornet or a rainbow, fear or a giggle, heaven or hell. The cosmos is speaking to us. It turns out that our personal cognitive filters will determine the nature of the cosmos's message. It's evident that we must be active agents in shaping truths the cosmos communicates to us. We don't get to choose what life throws at us, as life has dramatically reminded us of late. We do get to choose how we react. Let's choose rainbows. Our lesson for the day: make sure the biases you carry with you cause the cosmos message to be a positive one. Remember, you can't avoid suffering. You don't have a choice. It's inescapable. Here's what you can avoid: wisdom. You can avoid joy. It's your choice. In these difficult times, you have to choose wisely. The cosmos will be getting in touch with you. It's vibrating with illustrative energy. It will insist that any lessons that are forthcoming will require your active participation. It will insist that the reality you inhabit will be of your own making. And finally, the cosmos will require a little faith that its design will bring you wisdom and contentment rather than emptiness. Secular, scientific, humanistic faith. Faith that will guide you if you only listen.
The offering sustains and strengthens this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are keepers of the dream. You may mail your gift to First Unitarian Church, Post Office Box 494, Alton, Illinois 62002. Or you can give electronically by searching for First Unitarian Church of Alton on the Givelify app or by the link on our webpage. Give what you will, for you are a generous people. May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice. And now it's time for our announcements. Please contact the church office if you have an event or an announcement that you would like to share through our weekly Church This Week email. If you're interested in receiving our weekly email, please send your contact details to church@firstuualton.org. And remember to join us next week for our virtual service here on YouTube. Joy Heft and Jerry Johnson will be offering a special Father's Day service.
Let's keep the closing words simple today. This is from Carl Jung, the great psychologist. I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. Take care.
We now extinguish our chalice and conclude this service with these words: the light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are the keepers of this flame until we meet again.